Hello, storytellers, storytelling Ron. How to be a GM for a Christian role-playing game. I'm assuming that a lot of what I'll be approaching or marketing to is Christians at churches who aren't that familiar with ttrpgs and role-playing games and don't, scour the conventions and the and drive through RPG for all these games. And they're all pagan. They're all D&D-ish. They all want you to play as a pagan, think as a pagan, and change your entire psyche of your Christianity to be pagan. When you play role-playing games, you think of yourself as a hero who does good works. And that's not a Christian. A Christian is someone who follows Jesus Christ. Following Jesus Christ is about the gospel and evangelism and planting churches. And that's the game I designed up here. The Dark Ages, the Apostles of the Epoch, and Christians in Space. I am a D&D addict, or I love role-playing games. But I created a game to capture all of that joy and addiction and fun and the little heroin opium feed you get when you think of adventure, but also to add in what it is to be a Christian and where medieval history comes from, where fantasy comes from. Fantasy is created by us Christians. Fantasy is a Christian invention. It is a lighthearted take, innocuous take, a storytelling take on paganism. Pagans don't believe in paganism as fantasy. They believe it's real. The evil spirits, you don't want to offend the evil spirits. You don't want to offend the elves and giants and goblins who can curse your house or your home or your life. But we took them and turned them into fun stories. So I'm kind of bummed that we as Christians are retreating from everything we've done. We created the role-playing game. It was a bunch of Christians in a Christian culture who created the role-playing game. I understand there's war games all over the world, blah, 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 but they used them in their paganism for conquest. They didn't use them as entertainment or fun or games. We Christians turned all of that into fun and games. The Ray Harryhausen, films back in the day, stop motion, Sinbad's, and all those that he did were done in a Christian culture where we just enjoyed it as entertainment. We didn't look at it as a curse or a blessing to be used in our lives. We looked at it as fantasy, as entertainment. And today, though, the pagans have co-opted it. They've turned the fantasy that we have created, they've turned it back into paganism. Look at what they're doing with the games. They're pushing their agendas in the role-playing games. It's a fellowship now. It's a ministry to them. They love it. They love that we Christians are backing off, that we're silencing ourselves, and we're going along to get along, to be nice. And we've silenced Jesus Christ in all that we do, pretending to be Christian by doing what pagans want us to do, which is, be nice, do good works. Just don't mention that God. But we got a bunch of gods here you can worship, and play and role play in. But you just choose a lawful good one. You're fine, So. And I'm like, we got to bring Jesus back into it. Look at the culture. We got 1 million abortions a year. I think it's time. It's time for us to wake up. Okay. How to be a GM then. And what is a GM? A game master for a Christian role-playing game. So let me give you some basic advice. Boy, I always keep ranting at the beginning of my videos. Okay. First and foremost, read the rules. Understand the game, whether it's mine or someone else's, but I don't know of any other Christian role-playing game out there that does evangelism and church planning. I don't know of any. And I've been looking around and I've opened up my Discord for others, but I don't know of any that are evangelism and church planning. Okay? There's some other Christian role-playing games, but I don't know of any that do that. You correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please. But learn the game, learn the rules. You got to learn the rules. Now, how do you learn the rules? And they don't take that long to learn. The game rules are not really that hard in role-playing games. So for mine, let's just use mine as an example. You got to learn the rules. What's the best way to learn the rules? Let me jump to this real quick. Is to read the book, right? I got a PDF, the free PDF of the Dark Ages. You read the book. Here's some of the rules, examples. But what you really want to do to really learn how to understand the rules is make a few characters. Like print out the character sheet. It's on my website under the free area, or it's in the PDF as well of the Dark Ages. Print this out. This is downloadable, the fillable PDF here. Go through the process of making a couple of characters. Make 2 or 3, and then do a solo game where you just do some of the mechanics, the combat mechanics. Pull out some creatures from the game itself. I don't have any on here, of course, But if you pull out some of the creatures, let me just pull up boar. Pull out some of the creatures here and do a little printout on a piece of paper. This is just the way I'm visualizing it. You mix the character sheets, you print those out, you print out sort of a list of creatures they're going to fight, and then you just kind of roll. You do the turns where they attack each other, and you look at the rolls and the results, and you go through that process of learning how to do it. Now you do some blessings, figure out how that works. With the characters doing blessings to protect them when they fight the boars or whatever you want to throw at them, and throw something low level-y like the boars or like animals at them first, because that's the way you learn it. You got to kind of go through the whole process of doing it in solo play just to get a feel for it. And you're not going to get everything down. You're not going to understand everything. And when you do GM and start a game with people, you got to say that from the get-go. All right, I'm just trying to figure out how to do this. Let's just start. And I would also give them the rules if anyone of the players that you can recruit to do this, if you feel like they're nerdy enough and into it enough, give them the PDF or rules so they can learn it too. Because it's actually, please allow some players to be rules lawyers, like to really be into the rules, and then they can sort of dog you if you don't get the rules right. Because especially as a new GM, don't feel an ego thing when a player corrects you about a rule. The first thing you got to do is go, oh, did I get that wrong? And look into it real quick, especially if you guys are new at this, the new games. And even me, as a 45-year GM veteran, 46 maybe now by now, I still got to learn and remind myself to appreciate when characters or players correct me on something I got wrong in the rules. And I get rules wrong all the time, and I sometimes will just blasé pass through rules just to get the story moving along as well. And I won't give some of the creatures all of their abilities, or I'll forget one, or whatever. And I just kind of move on, just keep going with the game and the story or whatever. So even as a veteran GM, you're not going to get all the rules right all the time. You're never going to get all the rules right all the time. And when players call you out on it, quickly try to solve it. And also, when you try to solve issues that the players have, generally do it in their favor. Try not to, get too hung up on controlling the narrative or the rules or whatever, or the situation. I mean, at some point, I do get frustrated, and I want to test them, make it hard on them, the challenges, so it's challenging. You do want to challenge the players, and sometimes they want to not be challenged so hard. And the challenges generally are not deadly, but they're just frustrating them, and sometimes they kind of want to argue or whatever, or whine against certain rules or things that I'm doing, especially when it has to do with climbing stats or whatever. Kind of back off and let them get some of that easiness in there, and you can get them next time or whatever. Whenever, let's say you create a bunch of beasts or creatures that they encounter and they easily beat them. They use whatever and they beat them. Don't try to change. Just let them beat them. If they get to some way of easily beating your encounter that you designed, let them beat them. Darn it, you didn't make it as challenging as you thought it was going to be, and save it. You can save it for later and use it again. Remold it, or have another version of that encounter later on. And play it better, or add a little more that you think that could help. But don't worry about them always sort of beating you in the game and beating handedly, or that should be a reward for them anyway. Because there's a lot of times where I think I've created something very challenging, and then they just find a way to, in a very neat narrative way, to defeat it. So don't change. I have a rule where I don't change anything I've placed down in the game. Like I won't change the stats or whatever. On a rare occasion, I will add a few more hit points, knowing the inevitable is going to happen. But I'll add a few more just to make it last a little longer than what it's gonna than they're about to kill it or something. But I think I've only done that a few times in years. Other than that, I never really change the encounters as soon as the encounter begins. I only use what's on the paper there, and even if I think it's something cool, I don't use it unless it's on the paper. If it's something cool, I will put it on the next encounter, and add it to there, or whatever. Generally, when there's an argument or an issue, generally favor the players. But at some point, when their veterans are really good, come on, I don't let them do it. But in the beginning, go easy on it. Go easy on them. Give them reminders of things that maybe they could do. Let it play out a little loosey goosey as far as that goes. Let's get back to this. So you got to do some solo play to get used to the game. It's because you need to break through that confusion of rolling dice and figuring it all out. So get some player characters done, get some beasts done, do a little combat situation, and play it out the way the rules kind of describe how you should play it out. Do that a few times, just to get used to it. What else? Then, you want to. GMing takes some work, so you can't just sort of throw down anything you want. So and just start playing, which is a bummer, but it's a bummer for new GMs. For me as a veteran GM, I love it. I love it, and it's a bummer for new GMs in today's climate and culture. Back in the '80s, when you became a new DM for Dungeon Master for Dungeons and Dragons, a GM, it was so exciting because there was nothing else to do. I didn't have Netflix or internet or anything, so I had this whole world I had to create, or whatever, this region, and that was like exciting. Today we have so many distractions and forms of entertainment and access to people and communications, blah blah blah, that starting your little GM world is kind of not as intense of a experience or whatever. But as a GM, you want to do is start a region. You start a central village and a region. And this is just my example using Foundry, but you can do this on paper. And then you're going to have detailed out region, locations where you're going to have. This is the main village here. Is this? No. This is, where is this? Is this Lugano? Yeah, this is Lugano. So this is Lugano right here. This central village. And I could just use this map. I could just say, here, you enter here, and you can, you talk to certain characters, and you got to go out and adventure. And here is the marsh. My little marsh. Up in the corner on the left is the land, actually, where they come into the village, and then this is all marsh. And that is, just so you know, for mine, is this little marshy area right here, the river delta kind of thing. The forest right here is this little forest adventure, and I put little encounters in the forest, right? And that is this forest right here around Lugano. Point being, you're going to have to make a center, a place where they start, and then points of interest outside of it. And they're all going to have maps. And you're going to have to figure out what they are, and then how people talk about it, and the different areas and what's going on there and what the adventures are. So it's kind of work. And I do have all of this included in my supplement. I have a Dark Ages rulebook and a supplement rulebook. Or for all these adventures in this whole area around here, and that you can use. And they're hardbound on Amazon if you want to pay for that, and they're PDFs on my website. The Dark Ages is free, but the campaign is $12.99, I think, the PDF. And it has all these maps and areas, and these are things that you can cut out or just make your own. You can come up with your own maps. You can look, use AI or look for maps on the internet, and there's other people that make maps of things that you can use, marshes and forests, and you can create your own, setting. And you don't have to use this map either. I'm just saying this is what you got to do. You got to draw a town. And it could be a small town. It could be a town with just 4 buildings, and then there's adventure, and you're going to plant a church in that little settlement, and then have little scary adventures all around. And in this Dark Ages, I think D&D, whatever, you can create fantastical stories too. You can create scary dungeons and stuff. And I want it to be Earth-based because the Bible has a relationship with this Earth. And so the fantasy or Dark Ages or scary creatures, I kind of align with what myth and lore we have for Earth. But I don't mind that, you can kind of extrapolate out on that with some scary stuff, Cthulhu-y stuff, which is are still Earth-based. Bison, which is still Earth-based. I don't think there's orcs, but there is goblins. Orcs is kind of I think orcs and goblins and stuff are you could kind of relate that to cannibals or pagan occult warriors who are very vicious, like the Huns. The Huns were considered ogres or trolls, because of their viciousness. So you could technically do orcs. It's just that they would be other things, and you could, but whatever. You can come up with your own way of doing it. Again, the reason I stick with Earth is because the Bible's history and all that sticks with Earth, and so it's more in line with being biblically adherent. But that's it. This is just a video to babble on about GMing and how to get started GMing and how you need to kind of do. It takes work. It takes a bit of work to get it up and running. And I try to provide these books for you to have. Where are my books? They're over there. I think I'm doing stuff. Okay. I try to provide some stuff for you to use, but again, this is a tough. My game especially is a tough sell. It's who am I selling it to? Am I selling it to Christians? Am I selling it to RPGers? I'm selling it to Christian RPGers who. That's actually a really big area of the RPG world. The problem is that these Christians that play RPGs, we don't want to bring our faith into it. We don't want to bring Jesus Christ in it because we don't want to offend other players. I think we're supposed to offend other players. That's my point. And of course, me saying that is contentious, right? And I'm in a conundrum. I'll tell you that much. I'm in a conundrum about it. So what I'm doing is I'm going to a church and seeing if I can get them to play to see if they even think this is a good tool for fellowship and ministry. And actually, I just read. I'm really kind of thrilled about this, and I think it's really timely. Thank the Lord. Biblical Missions, which I got a great search when I went to their missionary conference. That was part of the ticket. But I just read one of the. It's all basically articles, and on chapter 3, I'm just going to show you real quick this right here. I'll just read it though. Chapter 3, a biblical view of God's servants' work in the church. David Doran. So basically, he's saying, to sum it up, is that we as individual Christians should not be doing ministries. We should be doing ministry through the church. We should be at a church doing mission work, not as individuals doing our own, because that's not in the Bible. It's not in the Bible to go out and just do your own ministry with no church adherence, because we all are supposed to be part of a church, and not individuals worshiping God on our own. And that's tough for me. I'm an individualist. I believe I'm a curmudgeon. I'm a hermit. I like staying at home. I don't like going out and dealing with other people. I do, but I don't. You know what I mean. But because of this game, I have become more aware of this, which I wasn't before. I'm more aware of biblical mission, of church, in my own way, because before I obsessed over role-playing games, D&D, Star Wars, fan stuff, and I did not obsess over Christ, over the church history. And now I'm obsessing over that, in a sort of a goofy fan-based way. I find it fan-based, kind of looking into church stuff. I'm all over the place about in my research, but I'm just more intrigued now by it because I'm doing role-playing games that are where you actually be role-play as Christians. So what's interesting about this is I have been going to this church now because of my desire to see if I can get my role-playing game in the church and see if it would work for them, and they're open to it. So and I told them, please don't let me push this on you if you don't like it, or if you're not into it. But they're like, yeah, but let's just try it and see. And I'm like, that's the best I can, that is the optimal answer I want anyway. So I'm going to try that. And the goal, I told I'm being very forthright in my agenda so that they know that the goal is that this could be a fellowship tool and a ministry tool for them and for us as a church. And if they don't like it, or if it's not, that's fine. Then okay, I gave it my best shot. Also, though, at the church, I'm starting to help out in other ways. Just hanging out there and fellowshipping, just normally. But it feels right to me now. It doesn't. It used to not feel right to me. Now it feels right because I've been fellowshipping with Christians doing this role playing game. We've been fellowshipping as Christians in a very fun, lighthearted, adventurous way as well. So I find that very intriguing about this game. And again, I as an individual should not be, I just read this yesterday. Literally just read this yesterday and was like, didn't think of it that way. I kind of knew it, but it clarified it for me. I didn't. Yes, the church. We need to serve the church, And if we're doing a ministry, yeah, we should go through the church if we're going to do our, whatever ministry we want to do. We should try to see, because the church is a place where you're going to have fellowship and people kind of bouncing off and, seeing what you're doing and you being a bit more humble about it and not so contentious and all. Because here I am on this channel being very contentious even with other Christians. And that's just my style. That's my individual curmudgeon style. And I'll see how curtailing I am on that or not, or rancorous I remain. I don't know. We'll see. I'm letting it be organic and fluid, but I am working, getting closer to and aligning to a church. Now, I went to Grace Church under John MacArthur, who just passed away, and that's a very sad moment. But I know he led a great life and a wonderful life, and he's now with the Lord, man. And I don't have any doubt in that. I don't have any doubt because of my creation science, my apologetics. I just don't have any doubt in what atheists believe, what Islam believes, what Democrats believe. Bible's true again. Bible's proven again, even though I'm trying to disprove it for many, many years now. I went to Grace, and now I'm transitioning over to this church only because I want to help a church, and it's closer, and they need help, and they could use some more help, some more butts in the pews, and just to help with stuff, and that's what, and I think I can be helpful. And at Grace, I signed up to do the VBS, but I got on the waiting list, so I'm like, what? I can't even help. I've been trying all these different things to try to help out, but none of them have come to fruition. And they have a very established way of doing things, and going up through the ranks to help out. And I'm like, I don't want to, I don't have time to start at the bottom and go up, because the people that are really there helping in the ministries start off as like young students in the master's, university, seminary, whatever, and then they assist and assistants and assistants to the assistants to the assistants, working their way up through there. And I'm not saying I'm looking for that. Like, I don't mind. I don't, like at the VBS, I was like, I'll do anything. I will do hard labor if that's what you need. But I didn't, I was on the waiting list. But at this church, I could tell they could use people like immediately. So that's why I'm like, and they're 5 minutes from me. So I'm like, and the pastor comes from Grace Church, from the seminary there. So I'm like, okay, this is good. Anyway, so that's my GM thing, how to GM a Christian GM this whole thing. And again, if you are trying to do something in a church with this, you're like, hey, I want to try that out. Just email me, contact me, or comment on the videos. And if you're legit and all that, I don't mind helping you out and sending you some PDFs and all that stuff. And then another thing I want to do, that I say at the very end of there, I should have said at the beginning, I would like to play, if you need someone to play test with on my game, so for your GMing, I'm absolutely game for that. Like, I will help you, run through something. Like, I'll, have you can jump on my Foundry with me, and I'll give you like a GM access to use a couple of maps, or just play test, and we'll set up a little scenario right there in front of us, and role play through that, just so you can get a feel for it. So I'm open to that as well. I'm going to post that on my Discord as well as I make this video. Because GMing is like, you got to break this confusion, this mist, that keeps you from wanting, like, you think, I want to do this. I want to storytell. I want to create a fellowship or a group, and create stories about church history and about our struggles as Christians in these different settings, in the Dark Ages, in the post-apocalyptic, and the Christians in space, or some other cool setting using evangelism, church planning, storyline as missionaries. I'm also kind of working on a modern horror, like Cthulhu-y, Christian Ghostbusters type of thing. I'm fiddling with it right now. I'm fiddling with that one. I'm fiddling with the African Squadron one of the 18th century, freeing the slaves, and I'm fiddling with the Gothic one in 13th century Gothic style. I just haven't committed to any one. I'm just kind of fiddling with them all and thinking about it. Or I should do more content for the ones I've already done. But anyway, all right. So that's it for this rambling of a ministry that I am bringing to the church, and hopefully going through the church with this ministry. And again, if it becomes more of a burden or an annoyance, I will, back off as this being a ministry for the church or for Christianity. And, I'm going to keep playing it because I just love it. But I'm going to help the church out, however they want me to help them out for their ministries and stuff. And the main ministry for the church we're at is growing the church. That's our main ministry right now in Hollywood. Grace Church doesn't need to grow. Their ministry is sending out churches, because of them and supporting them. But for this one here, this is about helping build this church up. Anyway, all right, the Game of Life, everybody. Game of Life is about evangelism and church planting, evangelism, church planting, but supporting the church, building a church, being part of a church. We need churches on every corner across the world. That is where you get. The church is the bastion, the refuge for the oppressed in the government around us, in the society around us. The church fights back at the oppression that we all constantly want to do on each other. The church gives society an even keel, if that's the right idiom, a balance, an even keel. Doesn't from people rocking the boat and beginning dictatorships and tyrannies and Me Too's and woke cultures and LGBT perverse cultures and all this stuff. The church is the bulwark, the bastion against the craziness. Here in Hollywood and LA, the churches have been corrupted by the LGBT. Some of the biggest churches here, some of the most wonderful architectural churches are all taken over by the woke. They're not churches. I'm talking about the real church. And I don't get into that argument later, but you know what I'm saying. But we need to bring back the church, and men need to get back into the church and rebuke this woke evilness. These low testosterone men running these churches, and these women, these lesbians running these churches. I don't know why I'm going off in this right now. That's a whole nother video. Anyway, let me stop because there's so much to talk about. On and on. In the Game of Life, everybody, got to roll holy dice.